Thanks very much for the opportunity to present this. As some of our colleagues know, we presented at the ICALLD conference last November, and we were pleased to be selected to be invited to this forum. Our presentation has, we did introduce a bit of humour at the ICALLD conference, which we're hoping to preserve.
We're hoping it translates.
Yes, we hope the humour doesn't get lost in the medium, so to speak. All right, so I'm Victoria Grossi, and Caroline Bright-Neville is my colleague. We've been working together at Deakin University for a few years. This presentation is part discussion, part sharing of our observations and experiences in establishing and embedding relationship in a postgraduate unit. We'll return to that and explain what that unit was. We want to present, we were quite new to embedding work and language and learning advising work when we started this project or this analysis of data, and we wanted to provide a discourse analytic approach to the embedding relationship that we were negotiating. So that's our perspective, and yeah, okay, so all right, now Caroline will.
Okay, so we're just looking at the next slide, and yeah, so drawing from our experience, we wanted to choose a metaphor to describe how we felt about working with a lecturer or an academic, and the metaphor that we came up with was a date. So we looked at the way that we try and we contact the specialist or the lecturer, and we were kind of talking about, you know, getting an initial appointment, making contact, arranging a time to see them, working on a plan together. And we looked at it in terms of, it was almost like trying to go on a date, and it was all about how we embedded, how do we get this relationship to work, and how do we embed ourselves in their unit. So one of the things that we asked the audience to do was to talk about what kind of metaphor would you use to describe your own experience in working with lecturers.
And you're welcome to type something in the chat box now or keep thinking about it and share it later. But we're working on the assumption that when we do create and try and establish these relationships, then what we're all looking for is follow-up. So we're not really just looking at that one-off experience, but we do want the continuity, which would ensure that we can then, yes, oh, okay, like stalking. Well, interesting you say that, because I think we've got a stalking experience with someone at the moment. We're trying to nail a coffee date, but it's proving to be quite elusive, and you know, that might just have to be another paper.
And I think unrequited love is a very good metaphor.
That's really, really nice, yes. I think we could do a word on all of these. And so then we, there's a lot of, this was a new way of working for us. So it was, I suppose it was, we came at it with fresh eyes, and so we'll build on that. Okay, so the theme really is how do we build these embedded relationships, but also we'll be looking at what they look like, okay?
I guess we've just broken down the components of a good relationship. Is it making time to meet, designing things together, gathering resources from the unit and working within that unit, and how we evaluate this work and follow up. So that's what we're looking for in our date.
That's right. And whether it's about, the sort of English support work or referencing, the previous two presentations, they were quite concrete examples of how we can work with staff. I mean, it's whatever, I think whatever the theme is, we are looking for that ongoing relationship where you can develop and actually progress and change attitudes. I do think that part of our work is to change attitudes and build confidence and build that common language and common shared understanding, so we're all in the third space. Okay, so we'll just continue. All right, so when we are looking for our perfect embedded relationships, we asked ourselves, is it George Clooney we're looking for? So we sort of have to have a goal in mind.
Are we looking for the perfect relationship, or will anything do? So what is it that we want?
Yes, and in our search, we found that, you know, of course we're building on previous work, and as we were new, when we did this data, collected this data, we looked at our colleagues who have much more experience than us. A lot's been written about the value of collaboration, and we'll list those, people are familiar with these studies, but one study that comes to mind is Carmela Briguglio's study, where she talks about 6 elements of successful interdisciplinary collaboration. And we were, of course, interested and fascinated to read about all this, so there's interdependence, newly created professional activities, flexibility, collective ownership of goals. And I think part of all this is the common sharing that, we've been talking about in the previous, the common language and reflection on process and personal characteristics. We will return to this. So it seems that things work when there are all of these elements, or some of them, and I think you can't have George Clooney all at once. You need time. So we wanted to, with this in mind, we wanted to see what happened in our own negotiation process. We saw Carmela's model of embedding before. We do understand that things are scaled. You can start with the stalking and build that up to a nice long-term relationship.
Okay. So this is about looking at how we work at Deakin and what's important in the strategic sort of outlook of the university, and that's going into the online environment. So we're looking at relationship building. We wanted to build a relationship with a unit in the Masters of MBA course at Macquarie, and we were looking at the relationships in terms of looking for a perfect soulmate. So we looked at how we would work together in the online environment. So we were thinking in terms of both working together in the cloud, talking over a coffee, talking about how we'd scaffold the learning, and we'd meet up and we'd talk about evaluation processes, and we'd Skype and use Blackboard Collaborate to share all these pedagogical moments that we came up with. So looking at what makes a successful collaboration and how we can translate that into the online and a blended learning context as well.
Yeah, we did think that this would add, because we are required, Deakin University agenda is to deliver in the cloud. I think the cloud campus is now considered the first campus. So we have 4 physical campuses. So I do think it adds an extra dimension, because then, as we'll discuss later, how the resources and the expectations of working online differ greatly between some of the academic staff and how we think we could be working and scaffolding online. So we did think that it added an extra dimension of the relationship and the negotiation of what is, best practice online or cloud blended learning, which Caroline knows a lot about.
So in our negotiation in this case study, this was sort of at the beginning of this new sort of paradigm, and the lecturer and we were all going into it as new into this environment.
Yeah. Okay. Feel free to type in comments, but obviously there will be, and we can share our slides and ask questions. So we'll just say a little bit about our case study and what it actually involved. So we've said already that we were fairly new to this work. Caroline was the language and learning advisor working with the academic, and I was the team leader who was I was involved in negotiating the work and trying to further the work into future semesters. So the Live Online agenda was very strong, and we had to pursue that because, you know, there were differences of approach. And as Caroline, you know, the word paradigm, this was the first request, the first of our experience working at Deakin, where we were trying to do something more than just an add-on sort of work. So for us, it was actually very exciting because, you know, we'd been reading about, you know, in the literature what's possible, and we really wanted to, you know, progress ourselves, you know, and our capacity as advisors and do a bit more than just, you know, the old 5-minute lecture at the beginning and say, come and see us. So do you want to say something about the unit?
Yeah, so the unit was a postgraduate coursework unit, and it was online. It was 100% online. Most of the students, and possibly all of them, I think, were working in some capacity, and initially the request was to have some support for report writing in human resource management. That's the unit request, and the request was that the resource was put online in some form or another, so students could access it after hours.
Yes, it was wholly online, and there were professionals who were doing this. You know, they were working and studying. And I think that's important because their expectation was that they were to interact online. So there's an element of like that we're dealing with here, our expectations, the lecturer's expectation, and then the students, you know, what can we offer students who can't actually attend the campus. Yeah. Okay, so when things don't work too well.
Yeah, so this is about our research aims and what we wanted to explore, and we wanted to look at the issues that affected this relationship building, our expectations going in, and how they actually evolved in real life. So we're looking at it through negotiating the discourse. So do you want to?
Yeah, that's right. So yes, that's right. So we're just getting something we left in the other offices. This is our third office. So we're using DS's discourse, discipline specialist and language and learning advisor, and we're aware, as a colleague who gave feedback to this PowerPoint said, well, aren't we discipline specialists as well? Well, we know we are, but so these are our research aims. We're just trying to explore what went right with this building of the relationship, what were the issues, and keeping in mind, you know, again, keeping to our metaphor, when things don't work so well, it's not you, it's all these other factors that come into play that, you know, that make the third space professional work so interesting, but so difficult as well. Okay, so we'll just, this is based on data, so we'll just go through that. Caroline and I are fortunate that we're working together and often driving together to a regional campus, so we had a lot of time to talk about what was going on, and we wrote some notes about, you know, why don't we feel that this is going smoothly? A lot of reflections about what could we be doing. You know, the students are saying this, she's telling us to do this. And then we were very fortunate that early on we decided that we should try, we gained the lecturer's agreement to record our meetings. So we were able to record 3 meetings which went over probably roughly 2.5 hours, and we transcribed that data. And there is, of course, a lot more data than we are going to touch on here. We are writing a paper. It's in progress, it's taking a little bit of time. So there was me, Victoria, Caroline, and one academic who we're going to call Elizabeth. And we want to say that she was very supportive of the project. We tried to give details about what she said, oh yeah, just record it, you know, she signed the ethics approval. It was, you know, very forthcoming about everything. And
so in that sense, it was a good and perhaps a perfect collaborative relationship.
Yes, yes.
It wasn't quite what we needed.
No. And she was very supportive of us being, I think she was a bit surprised that we were researchers, and I think we're always highlighting that, yes, we do have another, dimension to our work. We don't, just support students. We do analyse and evaluate. There was a lot of sharing, and I think we're saying this because we don't just want to present negative aspects of the relationship. It was really quite good in that way, in having her support. Okay, so we wanted to share a little bit about, so we collected masses of data, which is something that, it's easy to do. We settled on using Fairclough's critical discourse analysis, because we didn't just want to do, looking at the big picture or the very fine-grained conversational analysis type. We kind of very early on figured out some of the tensions and issues, but we wanted to, I guess, we think that this framework is actually a very good one. It accounts for both the big picture, macro social structure and power structure, like how Elizabeth, the university that Elizabeth is working in, and her organisational tensions, I guess, and then ours, what we're expected to do. Sometimes we felt like there were, we have different agendas, and we had to, we have to find a way to work there. I think everyone's heard about how busy academics are. It was really instructive for us to hear her talk in the second interview. She was actually quite forthcoming about how her work as an academic has changed. At one point she said, lecturing is just not what it used to be. And we thought it was interesting. She said, oh, is that tape recorder still going? Should I be saying all this? That was really interesting for us to hear that perspective. Yeah. So we say more about the Fairclough in the paper. So the social context that we are working with is the modern university, okay? And, we're all pretty much used to, terms like wider participation, at Deakin, hats off, in Australia, the autonomous students. We also have a greater number of knowledge workers. That third space is busy. We find ourselves a lot of times working with a library, with curriculum developers, careers, and everybody. I mean, the term embedded is being used, I think, a lot more. I know that, careers want to embed their modules, and so it's a bit, I think it's fair to say that the third space is competitive. I've been saying it's busy, but I think it's also. So what does all this mean for us? So the way that discourse specialists and LLAs, the way we work, we kind of came to the decision, or the final, in a snapshot, that the way that we talk in our negotiations is a result of the way we are institutionally positioned and organised. That's, I suppose,
be a finding.
Yeah, that's right. So, and what does this mean? Okay, so when we are, all our colleagues in previous studies have said, collaboration works well. When you collaborate, you get greater results, everybody benefits, everybody gets that. But what does collaboration mean, and what can it look like? Okay, so there is a lot of work. Collaboration needs a lot of work, a lot of particular type of talking, and how we're positioned is that we're always perhaps not we don't have the most powerful position, so we have to, someone described it as going gently all the time, So there's a power structure there, and we don't have the upper hand, and so there's a lot of relational talk, a lot of rapport building has to go on, and so we have to sometimes cast aside our own professional expertise or identities, and in our negotiation, we have to make sure that we don't lose our opportunity to keep going. So look, relational work, the relational work by Locker and Watts is again we chose this because it includes a whole entire spectrum of interpersonal side and it's social practice. So we think a position, when you have to talk in a particular way to get your own work done, it does have a lot of implications, I think. Sometimes even in who we choose to work with a particular faculty or unit. And I think that's, it's something that we wanted to explore. And it has been explored a lot in other institutional settings, like call centre. A lot has been written about call centre, student. I think we're used to thinking about power in institutional talk in terms of doctor, medical, like the Duran heritage sort of studies, teacher, student. So you expecting a power differentiation. But I think we were expecting a bit more of a balance because we are professionals, we are teaching staff as well. A lot of us have come from an academic teaching background as well. Both of us have had tertiary teaching experience. So I guess the power was a bit unexpected or is unexpected at times, and it's just it adds another layer of work to our work, if that makes sense. I've said enough on that. Okay.
Yeah.
So to sum up,
what did we find? Hang on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what did we find? We found that there is a mismatch in the roles and the expectations and pedagogical approaches and the way we scaffold our work, and we believe it's as a result of the way the institution's organised. We actually found that rather than having the George Clooney of embedding relationships, we actually ended up with something more akin to George Costanza. So I'm hoping that joke translates across the waters. So we found that we have this unequal power relationship and it's blocking, we feel that in a way it can block our chance at getting this perfect embedding and collaborative dream relationship. So, so how we're talking in these interactions and what are we actually doing as an LLA and how are we being judged and what's the language of this softly approach that we use. So I think this is in the transcript.
Yeah.
We wanted to read out.
We want to read out a bit of the transcript to just show how that power, the asymmetrical relationship comes out. And I think, we have to keep in mind, what do we sacrifice, when we don't have the equal relationship, where we are, able to voice our concerns about, what online means and what, what resources to develop and so on. Okay, so we wanted to, in exploring our role and, so we've heard that we must collaborate, we must, amongst other things, we must do the work, we must evaluate it, we must report on it, we must collaborate and keep it going. We found very timely our Victoria University colleagues McDonald, Schneider and Kett published a paper where we thought they put it beautifully when they said that academic language and learning lecturers are charged with working alongside disciplinary lecturers. So I think this was really interesting for us because, collaboration means we're working alongside, we're charged with something, but again, it's not, what is it that we're charged with? I mean, in the previous presentation, we were saying, is it our role to break down? Our role is quite fluid and there's a lot of, it's multifaceted, if we can say that. So we have to work out what we're charged with and then, it's complex. So that means the negotiation is complex. It's not easy. So we have to get the work, do the work and maintain and develop. So we are asking, is the talk the work? Often that was
that's the question. Yeah,
the question we're trying. And what does that talk look like? Yeah. Okay. We're now going to read a little bit. We didn't on purpose put it up so that you have to listen to
Yeah.
So you have to work out who the academic advisor is and who the discipline specialist is and who the academic.
So we've just chosen this example of the conversation between Victoria and the academic about negotiating the work that we were going to do. So I hope that you can hear both of us talking at the same time.
And please think about, what do you notice about the talk? Like, what are some of the linguistic features that you can, and maybe whether this is reflected in your own practice?
I'm going to read one role and Victoria's going to read another role. So I guess we're asking you to identify which one, who is the discipline specialist and who is the LLA.
Okay.
Okay. And so, okay, so one of the other reasons for getting you here is that in the past, many years ago, at another university, and the report writing materials that they provide to students through the X manual. I don't know if you've ever seen the X manual.
No.
Well, so it's the X manual. You guys do it online with lots of other different documents.
Yeah.
Well, they combine it all into one.
Oh, okay.
So the students can download it as a manual.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it goes into a bit more detail about report writing than what's currently available on your website.
We don't actually have very much report writing
which is why I've asked for more assistance, because there wasn't a lot there.
No.
And if that was the only support materials I was going to provide to students, I just knew it was going to be bombarded with questions.
That's right.
So I went and I gave them the link to the other university's manual because it had more detail in it.
Yep.
And when I asked you for any additional support that you guys might be able to provide, they didn't completely align.
Oh, right.
So,
yes, that's fine.
yeah, so then I asked somebody else and she kind of went with what Deakin already had on its website and just expanded on it, which wasn't exactly the same as what this other university had.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think there's a learning experience there.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think was, as I'm sure you're aware, Deakin is moving into the cloud.
Yes.
And I'm sure that there have been sessions run by your unit on report writing face-to-face, but in the past.
Yep.
And so this LLA sent through a copy of the slide that she uses, but slides are limited. There's no audio with them.
Absolutely.
And then when I said it would be really good, even clearly, that she didn't have the time frame to do it last year, but we've got so many off-campus students.
Okay, we'll stop there. I don't know if people want to try and identify.
I think somebody's got the answer there. I think Dawn's got the answer.
Yes. Oh, well done. Well done.
Well done.
Okay.
I wonder if it's something that's very familiar to all of you.
Now, I feel that as, because we're doing a discourse analysis of, almost 3 hours of conversation, I just want to highlight that this was the beginning. This was my first meeting with her, so we've had a few emails, and I think that in itself says something, that in the first meeting you meet, I'll let you, say what you think the tone and the features were, but so it's early. I'll just highlight that it was early in the meeting, so I guess I can't say very much about, what she's asking. I do have to listen. It's not, but it was very it's I think the timing, the sequence of how this was discussed is interesting. Our talk does change over the 3 meetings. Like the very sharing meeting was the last one. It was the end of semester. She was, telling me about, how academic work had changed. So it does change. There is a change of tone in the transcripts. Yeah, but so we'll just have a quick look at it.
I think Emma had some good points about using a lot of you in contrast to the we.
Yeah.
And that kind of came through in my own sessions as well. I always felt like the student.
Yes.
and I was so you're always hedging what you're
Yes,
saying.
and it's actually interesting. I think we can share our experiences where we, I mean, othering is a very good way to put it. You know, we offered her the paper to read before we submitted it to for review, because we wanted her to know that this is, you know, we've selected these stretches of talk from the, and I think we just wanted to make sure that she, you know, was aware, and maybe actually we thought she would like to add to our analysis and provide further insights that we could include. But I think she kind of, she interpreted the request to it was almost like
a proofreading
exercise, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's all fine. I'm happy." And she proofread our essay, but we didn't ask for proofreading. That was interesting. Okay, so what we looked at, you know, in terms of micro features, definitely there's, if you're identifying the floor taking, topic sharing. Dominance going on from her part. I certainly felt that there were a lot of truncated terms, and in some of the data, you know, the length of terms. Not that we're saying that if you have lengthy terms and, you know, an equal power relationship doesn't have to be equal terms and equal number. We're not saying that at all. I wouldn't reduce it to that. But it was about how we were positioned and what we felt we could say and add and change and offer. Like even in that stretch where she's saying, "Oh, I don't know if you're aware about Deacon's online agenda." Well, it would be very hard to work at Deakin anywhere and not know that we have a very strong online agenda. We had to be very tentative about our suggestions, and as Caroline said, downplay a lot of our ideas and hedge. And I think this was particularly the case with Caroline because she was doing the coalface work and trying to sort of introduce some online work, like the PowerPoint.
Yeah, there was a bit of perhaps a misunderstanding of our capacities and what we did. I think in terms of the online environment, there was an expectation that we would build and develop something really funky and sort of snappy, sort of an online module using a Flash sort of, resource on referencing, and we could do it in a couple of days, and we build it. So we sort of we kind of were seen then as multimedia developers rather than language developers. So it was a mismatch about what our skill set were and who we were really.
That's right.
What our backgrounds were.
And yes, and I think too, we would agree that there was a lot, from her point of view, like that manual she was referring to as being this easy, quick, downloadable PDF file. A lot of her advice to us, and you know, it is hard to avoid disagreements when and having this advice about you should do this and put something online, we were actually getting away from putting things online and wanted to move on to working within the internal Cloud Deacon or Moodle system, you know, our learner management system, getting away from generic resources. But a lot of her advice was, "Oh, you should do this report writing. I can't be the only lecturer who wants, you know, assistance. I'm sure my colleagues would appreciate it." And then she was quite fixed on this idea that we should be doing, you know, fixed static resources. And with our own paradigm shift, we wanted to get away from that and actually
embed more unit material into the support, and also not just be putting up activities that had no interaction with students. We wanted to put in collaborative sessions.
That's right.
And discussion boards and feedback. And work with the feedback from the discussions to kind of really target the support. So that was our big picture and our must-love cloud, and that was the qualities we were looking for in the partner.
Yeah, and I'm just reading what you wrote, Vanessa, about, you know, once you do have that George Clooney relationship and you can have all the, you know, sharing moments, then I think you wouldn't have to avoid disagreements, because what can be if I had brought up some of these issues, it might have been a disagreement, but when it's a sharing relationship, it's a sharing of ideas, and you would just say, well, what if, or I did this in another unit, I think it would work here. So then it's not a disagreement at all, it's actually a sharing of ideas, and you do it before, you know. No, she was quite, this she did need help quite quickly. This was quite a quick sort of turnaround work that we had to do.
Which is another feature, I think. I mean, I think Michael and Vanessa have pointed out it. Yeah, so a relationship does need a lot of building, and then when your supporter leaves, you're starting over again. You're always kind of at that stage of initiating these new relationships.
That's right, but that's where we think the institution has to step in, because with this relationship, we did think we got somewhere, and then she went on long service leave. Caroline went and worked at another campus, and we kind of lost all the, the good beginnings that we had to
So we're not structured to just take over when someone leaves. The structure's not there for us to seamlessly go in and continue on. We start back again.
That's right. And that has, we're going to look at the implications. So here we are. So if we're working in this way, what does it mean? Going back to our metaphor, which we do hope it's translating, our dates are often one-offs or flings or fleeting moments. And, how dissatisfying is that? So in a context environment where we are evaluated on getting the work and negotiating the outcomes and then building, maintaining, and I suppose what is we like to co-publish as well. A lot of our colleagues co-publish work, and that's satisfying. Well, the implications of working in this fleeting way is that our hard skills, so we're talking those interpersonal soft skills, which are important in any job. We're not saying that when we get to know people we can do away with our soft skills by any means, but our hard skills, so often we don't even get to use what we can do. And in our case,
all the talk around becoming part of a unit, talk about getting the work, more than the actual work or the content.
That's right. So, a lot of the applied media background that Caroline has, the examples of scaffolding that I have done in other universities, it hasn't, you don't feel that you actually ever get to the real work. And so the talk is the work. It becomes mostly what you do. And we wanted another question we are asking, how do we maintain our own professional identities in the interactions? I think that's very important. We don't have any answers.
Does anyone else have an answer? Date widely rather than settling down.
I don't know, Dawn, about polygamy. We would like to settle down at some stage. Okay. So, Thorn, we've been reading, our reading about power, what people do with Joanna Thornborough says, what people do in institutional encounters is produced overall as a result of this interplay between their intellectual and discursive role and their institutional identity and status. I don't think that we can change how we're positioned. I think what we're saying is that we're actually charged with a complex task, and we have very little power to shift it.
And it needs to be recognised.
Yes, I think it does. So luckily, again, our other colleagues have done the work before us. We found the article by Brunken and Daly from La Trobe argued that they did a study, and again they found that their collaboration with the unit worked very well. But then they went a step further and said what universities need to do, not us, is change how they're structured and move away from to allow us to do our real work. So universities have to learn to change and to do new things in new ways. And I thought that was very instructive for us and very perceptive, because we understand that talk is socially constructed practice, and we have to, soften with some people, or we can share more easily with others. So we wanted, our interactions did evolve over time, and what sort of interactions we end up having are not just us or our skills. I can't say that I had soft skills. We in our work we hear a lot about, we must be able to talk to academics. Well, that means a lot of things. So at what point supporting students at this level becomes, it sounds like a shared goal, not a sales pitch? That's what.
So so much of the time we feel like we are selling ourselves. We only get to that point where we're just making a sales pitch, who we are, what we do and how we can help. And then it kind of, but we want it to go further. But like you said before, Michael, when somebody leaves, it starts over again. So we're looking at what changes are necessary within our institutions to make this sort of happen.
And perhaps that's what we need to be doing as well, you know, making those recommendations at a higher level of management. So, you know, it's strategic management issue.
But we didn't want to end on a really negative note, so we've just sort of given you an example of meeting George Clooney, not Costanza, and I'm just as just an example. I hope you can see in the slide. It's just some work that we did in a unit with a lecturer who was very open to us collaborating with them. There was a natural expectation that we were part of the planning process and delivery. We were involved in initial conversations about what was going to be taught, the content, and where we'd fit in and how we'd fit in. We were given a place in the cloud, a room. It wasn't just a room. It wasn't a separate study support room. It was we were integrated into the weekly lectures and sessions. And it was just expected that we would be there. And also we were always getting requests for how do we think the course was going, or was there even the lecturer asking, oh, how did I go with my own delivery, with her delivery of the content. So in that sense we did meet George and it did go okay, but once again it was about, I guess, the discourse. It was a different type of discourse and a different attitude to start with.
Yeah, it was very telling actually that I mean, did that go okay? That was the lecturer asking Caroline at the end of a jointly delivered, she said, oh, did that go okay? So having the content lecturer, you know, an architecture lecturer ask us, well, was that okay? You know, what do you think? Well, just to be asked for the perspective. And then the pleasing thing about this lecturer was that she always gets in early because she thinks, oh, you'll be inundated with requests.
And yes, it was a genuine surprise when I said, oh,
not everybody.
She said, what?
And her expectation, she thought, oh, isn't everybody trying to get you into there?
I don't think that's come out on the
slide.
No,
sorry,
so
that didn't.
The quote was, doesn't everybody want you in their unit? Isn't this part of the normal process? Yeah. So I'm looking at some really interesting comments there on the chat.
So that is just our references and so we'll just, I think we've stuck to time. We haven't gone over or under too much. There must be 50 ways to leave. Yes, I'm sure there are. At what point does a relationship become unhealthy? I think that's
I think that's a good question.
I think, well, that's what we were asking ourselves. I mean, how often can you do this and not become demoralised? And at what point does...
And I think what the previous presentations on proofreading and the other and being asked to fix referencing, being sent 6 students individually because they haven't referenced properly. But this is what we were saying. We're trying to get a date with somebody who continues to send us individual students for referencing at the end of the year when they've failed, where we're trying to get into the unit and do more meaningful sort of work. So I guess, that it almost becomes an unhealthy relationship. You're always accepting them.
Yeah. I think it's, yes, that's right. I think you can be unlucky too, and that you can have a lot of these in one semester, and then you get to the end of it and you haven't really felt that you've been able to, do any real education, have an impact on the students, or you don't even get to see the students because you've had 5 minutes at the beginning of the first lecture when the students still haven't found the lecture theatre. But yeah, with Simon's, I think there's a lot of strategies that we can use about how to minimise the power. But I guess what we're saying overall is that there needs to be a structural overhaul of how we're positioned to minimise that power. I think that's the main issue, and we can't do that. Like, we are working very much like, returning to the sales. We're like door-to-door salespeople. And I know some librarians work, like they actually have a faculty day where they say they go and make contacts and network. So does our work have to rely on networking? Is that really how the university wants to use our capacity, like to have us networking in order to do what we can do? Or is there another model? I think that's what we're asking.
And how can we push that model, or how can we, what does that model look like?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll just keep reading.
And Simon, I'd be interested to hear if you've done that, if you've submitted questions, and how did it go?
Yeah.
This reading from Emma's.
Yes. Yes, that's right. That's right. I mean, her famous quote, transition pedagogy is everybody's business, or something to that effect. I mean, I think we would all agree that, giving, Anna's paper, giving feedback on language is everybody's business. You can't just segment, this is first year, this is referencing, and I was in a meeting recently where people said, we don't teach English. I said, well, we're not asking you to teach English. But, it was even like, it was interesting the power of that comment, the academic saying, we don't teach English, as if there's something wrong with teaching English in a way. So there's a lot of, I think, like the first year pedagogy, I do think that this is, needs to be, the change needs to be embraced at a wider, at a bigger level. And it needs to be systemic, otherwise we'll just end up doing the same thing over and over. We don't teach consultants, but we can. Yes, look, we try and work with the library, and that's another relationship you have to build, and and they also go on leave or they get changed to different faculties.
And I think they also feel they have the same issues that we do. They feel they're in a similar position. I think they'd like to work in a more embedded with us as well as a team. We're going together, and that is hard to get. That's something we're sort of trying to work more with. Yeah. Okay, so I'll be interested, Simon, if you try that to get at the next conference. See how you go with.
Our emails are at the front here in the. Please email if you want to discuss further, or if you want to share more metaphors.
And I'm interested in reading Dawn's title, 50 Shades of Learning Development. It'd be very interesting.
Yes, I think we could certainly come up with a lot of titles. Can we also share that there's in Melbourne, I've recently found that there's a George Costanza cafe in Brunswick Street. So if you come into Melbourne and you're looking for a cafe, so thank you very much.